Welcome. Today I'm going to be showing you how my church builds our Ableton worship sets and hopefully inspire and create some creativity for you guys to help you lead well with excellence in Ableton and multi-tracks. So I'm going to teach you guys what my church does with the assumption that you guys are beginning to build your sets. So I'm going to start from the very beginning. If you guys have any questions or if I missed something, love to hear from you in the comments. But we're going to start off with creating a folder. So you can create a folder anyway, and then you can label it however you want. I've got my folder here, and it's called Worship August 8th and 9th. You can label it whatever's going to help you. The time of this recording, the 8th and 9th is the closest weekend. And within this folder, you're going to put all of your songs. So for my church, we use multi-tracks. We also use Loop Community, but you're going to get your tracks so you can import them into Ableton. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to open up a fresh Ableton folder and set to start working in. So once this gets loaded, I'm using a Mac, so every shortcut that I teach you guys is going to be based off of a Mac. It will work for Windows. I'm just not sure what the keys will be called. But for instance, I'm going to hit Tab on my Mac, and it's going to change between these two views. For my church, we use what we call Session View, which is this, and it's going to make it easier. It's going to be like a timeline. So right over here is going to be the beginning, and then the further you go to the right, the further it goes along in the timeline. So we have our session up. We're going to hit this arrow on the top left. I'm going to circle around it. If we hit that, guys, it's going to open up almost like a shortcut. And your screen may look a little different. You may have to drag your sidebar, but we're looking for the desktop. In my case, it's the desktop. It may be different. It's all depending on where you put your original folder where your tracks are. So got the desktop here. And now we're going to look for that specific folder. And we have it right here. And we're going to hit the little drop-down list on the left. And you're going to see all of your folders of the tracks. We're going to be working with 3 songs today. Depending on how many your church does, it may look different. You may have like 5, 6 songs, or 2 or 1. Either way, it'll be the same. And for today, we're going to work on... let's say we're going to start with We Praise You. This is an awesome song by Bethel and Brandon Lake. So if you hit the drop down list, you're going to get some info. But the big thing right now is you're going to want this BPM number down. So for what we're working with, 85.50 is the BPM. So we have to draw that tempo in. We got to make sure before we lay our tracks down that we have put this tempo in for many reasons, but the one that we'll focus on today is depending on if you use different BPMs or different clicks, I should say, it's going to affect how you want to do that. And sometimes you may want to speed up a song. You may not want to do it at 85.5. You may want to do it at 86 or 87, just slightly different or even slower. Sometimes my church has done that to keep 2 songs at the same BPM just to make it easier. So we have to draw that in. So I'm going to hit this little drop-down arrow again to get rid of that screen so I can see a little bit more. But on the bottom right, if you see Master down here, we're going to open that guy up. There's a little arrow on the left of Master, and you click it. Ableton 9, I know, has some options here automatically. Ableton 10, it looks just blank. So an easy way to get some options there is if you just hit the letter A, hit it back and forth, it's going to show it and then hide it. But we want it to be shown. And if you go to where it says track volume, it may look different, but it's going to be the second drop down option. You want song tempo. So go ahead and click that guy. You're going to see the lowest BPM and the highest BPM that it's going to show on your graph here. What we found to be the easiest is just to work for the lowest. So our song was 85.5, so I'm going to go ahead and type that tempo in, and you see it right there. If you come up to the top right, you're going to see a little pencil tool. I'm going to click it a few times so you guys see that. You want to highlight it. Your cursor is going to turn into what looks like a pencil when you come down here. And you just want to click and drag from the very bottom, the left, from the very, very beginning of your session all the way to the right, because you want to draw that new time in. And even below it, you can see it's got little timestamps of the minute mark. I usually go for, I don't know, 10 minutes at least, because some of these songs, especially from Bethel, they do some spontaneous stuff, and their multi-tracks are really long. And it's okay to go longer than you need, just because you can always trim and cut that extra time, especially when you put the new song in. We'll look at that as we move forward. So let's keep going, let's keep going. I think we'll go to about 8 minutes, because I don't think We Praise You is... Okay, so your line, or your BPM, has now been drawn to 85.5, which represents the bottom line. That's why we put the BPM of the song on the lowest, because you just click and drag all the way down. So you're good there. So now we're going to come up back to the pencil tool on the top right, make sure it's not highlighted anymore, because you don't want to change anything there anymore. Now we have to go back to where our folder was. So if you click the little arrow on the left, we're going to start with We Praise You. So you just drop that arrow, and we're going to open up the multi-tracks. There's a ton of tracks. So we're going to highlight all of them, and it's super easy. If you just click the top track and then you hold Shift and then click the bottom one, you're going to highlight all of them. Easy tool. We're going to click and drag. The cool thing about here is it's a little shortcut too. Don't click and drag and then just let go, because as you can see, there's only one track that is visible, and then if you look to the right, you can kind of see the next track. We're going to hold Command. When you hold Command, it's going to line them all perfectly up, so that way they're stacked on top of each other. So hold Command, and while you're holding Command, let go of your left mouse, and it's going to drop them all down there. So all your tracks are there. They may open them up really huge, like you just saw here. An easy way to kind of clean things up is if you just click on the track name. So for instance, this says tenor, 23 tenor. I'm going to click that. I'm going to do a Command A, and it's going to highlight all of them, and just hit any of these arrows that are pointing down, and it's going to minimize them, which on my screen, everything disappeared. If you come to the right here, you can just click up, and you can see them all. It's a little easier to just focus your attention on. And I'm going to delete these unnecessary tracks up here that is included when you first create your session. And I'm also going to minimize the master track down here, just to make things a little bit easier to see. All right, so now the big thing that my church would do is start organizing your tracks so that all your click tracks line up perfectly. I always put the guide and the click at the very top. So if you just click the track that you want to move, for me it's going to be the guide. I want that guy to be up top. I also want the click to be up top too. That way it's just easier to reference and know it's a track. We also do a lot of songs in different keys. So another thing we do, we group instruments that you don't want to change the key to, because you obviously don't want to change the key of your drums, because those are not in the specific key, like key of A, or you want to do your piano, your guitar. So I'm going to lower the instruments that I don't want to change the key at the very bottom, just so I don't accidentally change the key of my drum set, because then it'll sound weird, even though I would not use my drum set in a live setting. So it looks like it's just the drums and tambourine, maybe a few others, but I'm not noticing. So this is originally recorded in the key of A, but for me, I sing this in the key of G, just a little lower. It's a little easier for me to sing because we have multiple services at my church, and it was a little easier. So I need to change the key of all of my instruments that need to play in the key of G. And I'm actually going to change my mind. I'm going to move my tambourine and my drum set to the very top. That way, from the drums down, everything that needs to change keys. So to change the key of a song, it's super easy. but there is a couple steps that we have to get right, or else it's going to be exhausting and super annoying. So we need to highlight all of our tracks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my vocal effects, which is the bottom one. I'm going to come to the very, very, very top. I'm going to hold shift and click on guide. This highlights all your tracks. And if you come down to the bottom right down here, there's a little arrow. We're going to click that guy, and this window opens. I'm actually going to do this one more time. So I'll click Vox Vox FX, and then come up here, hold shift, click on guide. Doesn't seem to be doing it. Okay, there we go. I'm going to double click on the effects. That way this window down here pops up. I'm going to scroll back up like I was saying. I'm going to click on guide. So you should see this window now. So before, make sure you double click your bottom track, or else it may just be blank down here. You don't want it to be blank. You want something to pop up. So double click it, come to the very top, hold shift, everything's selected, and you still have this window. There is a button down here called warp. This allows you to change the key without stretching your tracks. If you don't hit the warp button, you start changing the key, it's going to stretch them or compress them. We don't want that. We want it to still stay the same. So we're going to hit warp, and you're going to know it's warp because it's orange now. So now what we're going to do is we can change the key of our track. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click just underneath the track because I don't want to change the key of the click, guide, tambourine, and drums. I want those to stay the same. So I'm going to come down here again. I'm going to double click the Vox FX track. I'm going to scroll up, and I'm going to come all the way up to keys 1 because everything above that, you don't want to change the key. So hold shift, click keys 1. You're going to have everything selected, and you're going to come down here to the transpose button, circling around it. These work in half steps. So if it's at 0, you're at the original key that was recorded in, which would be A. And I need to go down to G, which, if you know half step and whole step, 2 half steps down from A would be G. So I'm going to just click and drag him down till he says -2. And the opposite's the same. If you want to raise the key, maybe you can sing higher than Brandon Lake. The key of A is a little too low. You want to go from B. You would then move. You would go up 2 half steps. So just depending. That's how transposing your keys work. But again, make sure it's warped, or else it's going to be bad. I also like to change from beats to complex. This allows Ableton. I can't explain it. I don't know how it works, but when you do complex, it helps your instruments not sound super weird, because once you start warping and you change your keys, the more you transpose it. So if I went down to like -7, or even +8, your tracks, you're going to notice, they're going to sound super weird. So complex just helps it change that up a bit. So that's set there. Everything's -2, which is how you want it. So we're in the key of G now, and you can play it too if you want, just to make sure. Yeah, that's the key of G. I can tell we've played this song quite a bit of times. So now that this song is where you want it, it's perfect, it's good to go, I'm going to go ahead and put some of the other songs in that we would do. So I'm also going to put some flags into, because flags really help just clean things up. So if you want to learn how to do flags, you can hit your stop button to make sure it's at the beginning, but then towards the top right, you're going to see a set button. Just hit set, and you're going to notice a flag appears right before your song. If I click over here, you can see the little highlighters blue. If I click set, it's going to put a flag there. I'm going to leave that there because I'm going to end up putting my next song in there. So I'm going to rename this We Praise You, so it's a little easier. And I'm going to put Good Grace here because that's going to be the next song I'm going to include here. So same process. I'm going to come over here, drop down list. I'm going to minimize these guys so I can see Good Grace is 71. So we're going to come down to master. I'm going to change my lowest BPM setting to 71. You're going to notice the red bar changes. Click the pencil, and this is where it's important. scroll to the right, and if you don't know how to scroll, anywhere in this dark gray area, you can click and drag left or right, and you can scroll. This is important. You want to draw the new tempo in where your flag is at. So that way, because if you start drawing your new tempo of 71 while you have tracks here, you're going to have a bad time. It's not going to be fun. So we're going to quickly draw this. That should be good. That's about, yeah, that's plenty of time. So again, tempo's drawn in. I'm going to click this pencil guy up here, drop the master down so I can see a little bit more, and then I'm going to come over to my multi-tracks, and we're just going to toss those boys in there. Put them where they need to go. And again, hold command and just put them right up to the flag. Guys. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm actually going to click on the wave file and bring them up to where they want. You can always click and drag them however you want. So the guide goes there. Guide, all right, guide goes up here. What's cool too, the tracks are labeled. So this is guide right here, and if you just come to the right, you can see what it's labeled to. I'm just going to worry about the guide click and then getting my drums put where they are. Let's just put drums there. Perk, that's probably a tambourine. And I'll just move these guys up to clean these up. Normally on a weekend where we're building our sets, we would clean these up a lot more, but for the sake of today, I'm not going to do that. So Good Grace is also in the key of A. I'm going to change that to the key of G because we're going to create some really cool transitions from We Praise You to Good Grace. So again, click the acoustic guitar. Let's minimize that guy. Or the bottom like I was showing you earlier. Make sure he's highlighted. Come to the top. Acoustic, hold shift. Click it. Make sure it's all highlighted. Make sure it's warped. I'm going to lower it 2 half steps so they're both in the key of G. Now we can play it. Make sure we're good. Yep, so that's bueno there. Let's go ahead and put the last song in. So I'm going to click over here. You can see the blue highlight right there. I'm going to hit set right here so I can put the flag. New flags put there. I'm going to name this one God of Revival because that's going to be our next one that we put in. So flags there named. Clean it up. Come back to my drop down on the top left. This is 72. That's kind of cool. It's pretty similar to Good Grace. 1 BPM mouthful. So 72 down here, like we've done. Gonna grab the pencil tool and gonna start right at the flag. And here we go again. Put this time in there. And the reason I'm putting the BPM and I'm drawing it down here in this line is because my church uses a click called a foundation. We've just found it to be a heck of a lot easier to hear because the way we use it, it almost sounds like a cowbell. And that may sound super annoying to somebody, but we have found that it's just easier to really hear the downbeat versus the 2, 3, and 4, whatever time signature you're in. If you're not using any alternative click, you probably don't have to worry about doing any of this. You just use the stock click like we're doing today, but if you ever want to use a different click outside of what's included in multi-tracks, this would be your best option. Okay, so we got that going. We're going to minimize master like we always do because I'm all about making sure things are clean and looking good. So we'll come to multi-tracks. Again, we're going to highlight all of them. Click and drag, hold shift. I'm going to throw them down here. Grab the, let's minimize that guy. Clean it up. Grab the click track, move him up to where they all line up with the click, guide, drums, put him in there. Is there a perk? Yep, there's a perk. Cool. And then let's just bring these guys up to clean things up. So. And we are good. So, sweet. Now we have to transpose them because this is originally in D flat, but I do this song in the key of C, which is just a half step lower. So let's go ahead and double click the piano like we would. Make sure it's warped. It's good practice. -1, and I actually forgot to put complex in for good grace, so I'm going to come over here and make sure those are in complex. So if you know much about music theory, what my church tries to do is, I mean, if possible, get things in the same key because it's super easy to make cool transitions if everything's just in the key, a single key. But in this situation, the first 2 songs are going to be in the key of G. And if you know music theory, you know the major 4 and the major 5th of the key of G would be C or D. So it works out really well. Going from G to the key of C, it's going to blend really nicely and sound pretty nice. Really easy to transition from song to song. You don't have to worry about keys clashing and sounding like garbage. Yeah, you don't want that. So now, what we would do for my church is we would really cut these songs up, make them fun, make them unique. For my church, we rarely ever do a single song the same time. We're always doing it, different arrangements each week, which makes up for really creative opportunities to do new songs when our congregation comes to worship. They never have an idea. They don't know what to expect, and it just keeps things fresh and unpredictable. So what we're going to do is we're going to work specifically on We Praise You. I'm not going to dive real deep into how we would cut the song, but I'm going to show you some cool tricks that you can do. Why I put the click and the guide up top, and I always put them next to each other across left to right, is it's really easy to work that way when you want to cut stuff up. So if you click on the little arrow to the right, you're going to have that drop-down list. And then we're going to start zooming in. And these little ticks here, little black marks, that's your cue of like, hey, it's a chorus. It's a verse. And I'll show you guys it. So I'll highlight right here. I'll hit play. I'll do a little bit before so you can see.
Verse 2.
So here, verse 2 right here is chorus.
Post-chorus.
That's a post-chorus. So forth. So it makes it easier to really cut up what we're going to do. So I know for sure on this song, it goes a long time. I think this song is 6 minutes and 48 seconds. We rarely ever do the full version. So I'm going to cut up what I know specifically is huge on some parts. So say, let's see here. Let's start with the bridge.
Bridge.
That's a bridge.
Bridge. Post-chorus.
So that's a post-chorus.
Bridge.
This is the first bridge right here. And when I was showing you flags, this is super helpful. So I'm going to highlight here, and I'm going to put a little mark there. You can name it to help you kind of keep track, but that lets me know, like, hey, this is the first bridge right here. And that helps me just focus and make things work a little bit faster. So the way this song works is it goes from the post-chorus or the instrumental into a down bridge. Right, so I'll play it for you so you can hear it.
Post-chorus. Bridge. Breakdown.
Like that. So maybe you don't want to go to a down bridge, but you want to go from that huge instrumental to an upbeat bridge. That's really easy to do. And right now, let's find out which cue here is the big bridge. So let's give it a shot here.
Bridge. Slowly build.
So that'd be cool. Like right there, from this section that I'm highlighting here is a down bridge, but right here it starts to build. So this is what we would do. We would cut everything in the middle. So the easiest way to do this is to highlight the beginning of her cue. So it's right here. So you don't want to highlight here, you don't want to highlight here, you want to highlight right at the beginning of her cue, and you want to click and drag to where your flag is at. You always want to click and drag to the beginning of a cue. And that, when I say a cue, that means the bridge or the chorus. And then we're going to come up here to edit, and we're going to hit delete time. I know there's a few different ways to do this, but this is the fastest that I have found to work really well. So I'm going to hit delete time, and what that's going to do is it's going to take this section, the beginning or the end of the highlight, if you will, and it's going to smash it up to the beginning of your highlight. So we hit delete time. It's going to compress it, and you're going to see little lines here too. You can tell that it got cut. So let's give it a shot. Let's listen to what it sounds like now.
Bridge. Slowly build.
Okay, it's a little rough. It's a little rough. We need to smooth things out. So this is the next step. If you drew in your BPMs, this is going to be a huge help for you. If you come up here, you can notice that it's a lighter gray right here, and then right here it's a darker gray. This breaks up your measures. So this is the beginning of a measure because it starts gray, and at the very end it starts to go light. That's the end of your measure. Sorry. So beginning, end. So what we got to do is we got to click and drag our tracks from the left of our cut and drag them over to the beginning of the next measure. And that may seem confusing, but I'll show you guys what I mean. So we're going to highlight the tambourine, and again, you can see right here in this section as you look down, there's little lines right before the name of the instrument. That means there was a cut there. So you can highlight the left of the cut or the right of the cut. Well, you want the left. So we're going to start at the tambourine, and we're going to hold shift and go to Vox FX. We're going to highlight them all, and you're going to notice only the left side is, the right side's not highlighted. And you're going to come up here, and when you hover over the end of a clip that has been cut, you're going to have a little bracket. So the bracket's facing, I guess, left or right, however you want to think. But if you just hover back and forth, it's going to change. You want to have the bracket look just like this. So the points are facing left and the bracket's facing right. We're going to click and drag it to the beginning of that downbeat right here. That's the downbeat here. And what that's going to do is that's going to clean up your instruments and your transitions. So when we play it now, it should be at least a cleaner transition from each other. So let's go a little bit before the pre-chorus.
Bridge. Slowly build.
So that is much cleaner. And what you can do too to make it even better, because you're most likely not going to use all these instruments. You're going to have some musicians, so it does make it easier when you start muting, like or a couple guitars in your vocals. But if you open up your drop down by clicking the little arrow, you can blend these guys into each other. So let's look at the drums one, because I noticed that one kind of sounded a little nasty. So I'm going to solo him. If you just click the S on the right, you can solo the instrument. But let's give it a listen to. So it's not bad, but it's not great. So I'm gonna highlight a small section. This is highlighting the left track that I had cut, and this is the right track. And if you right click on your mouse, you can do a create crossfade right here, and this is going to help a little bit. Let's see if this is a little bit too much. It may work. So it helped a little bit, still a little rough, and you can fine tune things like that. But let's look at some more instruments and see. Sometimes I do really small crossfades, so I'm going to quickly do these just to help clean things up. Let's do some vocal effects, because those I know for sure seen on here. I'm going to actually bring those back so I can view those. Soprano, let's bring him back. And if you ever bring back a track that you cut, so like we have the line here, you can click and drag him back, and he's going to reveal what you cut. So I know the lyric starts behind the beat, so let's give that a listen to.
Slowly build.
still a little clippy. So I'm gonna actually drag some of these guys back some because it's still not as good as it could be. Let's bring him to right there. Let's see what the acoustics. Yeah, the acoustics coming in too. Yeah, cool. Let's see what that sounds like.
Slowly build.
Guys, that's much cleaner. So I'm gonna close all these windows. And something too that I will do is I will mute the clicking guide so I can just hear the instruments, because your congregation's not going to hear the clicking cues. They're going to hear the instruments and the tracks. And if you click the orange squares here, it'll mute it. So if it's grayed out, it means it's not playing. So let's give this a shot. Let's come back a little bit more. Yeah, it sounds a lot cleaner. So that is a quick way to cut certain sections to make things a little bit shorter, maybe even longer. If you ever wanted to add a bridge, you would just do that same tool that I showed you where you highlighted the beginning of your cue to the beginning of the next cue. You copy it and then you just paste it wherever you wanted. So let's look at how we could do Good Grace from We Praise You. So let's see how We Praise You ends. Okay, cool. So it ends pretty big. What I love about Good Grace is that instrumental section where the vocalists just sing low. I think it's super powerful with the drums and guitar. So let's find that section.
Chorus. Refrain.
Yeah, so it's right there.
Refrain.
So it's a refrain. I'm going to highlight behind it like we've done before. I'm going to hit set to put that flag just so I know it's there. Scroll back out. And I'm going to do that same tool that I showed you about the delete time. I'm going to start where the flag is, right before the flag. Come over here. I'm not going to worry about getting them really close right now. I'm going to make sure I can have some space to see. So I'm just going to highlight before the song ends, hit edit, delete time, and this gets it a lot closer to each other. That way you can fine tune some stuff. And it just gets it closer. So let's figure out how we want this to end.
Chorus. All
That's a chorus.
ending.
Cool. So I'm going to figure out where the downbeat is of this song of We Praise You. And that downbeat, or excuse me, I'm sorry, not the downbeat. Or I guess, yeah, the downbeat, where the one beat lands is going to be my one beat for Good Grace. So let's figure out where that is.
Ending.
So it's right here. So I'm going to put an arrow there, or a flag there to help me figure out where I want to be. So this is the beginning of my cue, which is where I want to start counting. And this is where the beat ends. So I'm going to highlight again, drag. I'm going to go to edit, hit delete time. So that way it puts them up together. So this is going to be a little different than when we made that edit to We Praise You, because this is two different songs. So I'm going to play it just so you hear. And it's going to sound terrible because it's going from the very end of We Praise You, and it's going to immediately go into Good Grace. So I'll show you what it sounds like if you don't do those blending tools that I showed you.
Ending. Refrain.
Yeah, so that did not sound very good. So I'm going to put another flag here. I'm going to start Good Grace. I'm going to figure out where that downbeat is on Good Grace.
Refrain.
Okay, so it looks like the one beat lands here. So I'm going to come over here again like we did with our instruments. I'm going to highlight the tambourine, click all the way to the bottom, and I'm going to click and drag those tracks to the downbeat. So that way these tracks have time to fade out, and then right there it's going to take over to Good Grace. So let's just hear what that sounds. I'm going to mute the click and the guide. Let's see. It's not the greatest, but it's a lot cleaner than it was before. So now let's come in here and let's do some blending. So in this time, when I hit this point, I definitely open every single track and start blending things together. So the drum track, you can see it trails off. This is the major hit with the kick and crash, and the tracks seem to fade out some, and then immediately goes to a hit. So I'm going to do a real small transition fade here. I'm going to solo that drum again. There you go. So that wasn't bad. That was pretty good. Let's open up. I'm going to close these guys. Let's open up the next one. I'm not going to worry about him because you can see there's volume here, but once it hits here, there's nothing there, so no point in worrying about him. Same with the acoustic. I'm going to do a short blend, maybe even move him back a little bit. That acoustic, so you can see it ends abruptly, which is where our cut is. So I'm gonna drag him out a little bit and do a fade. And again, you guys have to forgive me on this one. I did not align my tracks up, so it's going from the acoustic guitar right here, you can see, to the bass, but thankfully the bass doesn't seem to start right there. So I'm going to close him. Tambourine, this is a choir, or not tambourine, no, I said tambourine, baritone, that's fine there. I'm going to move him back just a little bit because that's where the woes happen. Here's another nasty cut. The bass just gets cut right there, so I'm going to clip him out. I'm going to drag him out so it's a nice fade. And you have little boxes here. I don't think Ableton 9 has this option, which kind of sucks, but I'm going to move him left and kind of do a little fade out past the beginning, so that way when the downbeat happens, this is going to fade out. Bells, this is electric guitar, this is the bells on the track. Again, this is why it's good to really organize your tracks. So I'm going to just quickly do this because faster. Okay, getting there. Fade. Okay, sweet. And again, I spend a heck of a lot more time here, but I'm going to try to go through this quick for you guys. Sweet. So that looks good. Let's give it a shot. Again, the clicking guide is going to be turned off, so let's see how it sounds. There you go. So it doesn't sound too bad. Again, I would spend a heck of a lot more time cleaning these things up, and I would also have my tracks organized where, you know, this would all be guide, which it is. This is click, and then probably put my drums and put all the drum tracks from left to right over each other, because right now it's going from, like you saw, this is the acoustic guitar, and then it's going to the bass track, so it's harder to blend. So that would be how we would do that. We would play around with it some more, but instead of going into that intro with acoustic and then singing the people come together part, you could go into a heavy instrumental. And we would do the same with God of Revival. We would figure out what we want to do with it. Maybe we don't want to start at the beginning. Maybe we want to start on a heavy bridge. And we would just make those cuts like I showed you, with highlighting where the cue begins and where you wanted to start with the previous song. But that basically is kind of the beginning steps of how my church uses Ableton to create interesting sets and make unexpected sets, if you will, and keep our congregation singing these songs that we sing quite a bit, but still making them fresh and kind of unpredictable. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments. This is my very first video doing an Ableton tutorial. I know it was probably longer than I anticipated, but I hope it helps you guys. I want to do more of these. If you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I do a bunch of guitar covers and tutorials on songs that you guys are typically not going to find people doing. And I hope that they help you out. But yeah, subscribe, like the video. Appreciate you guys.